Typically you watch the film, the tape, and it's never as bad as what you thought. I'd like to say that was the case, but it was as poor a performance as what I thought. Very disappointing, and as I said in this room after the game, we all own that as coaches and players. It was very disappointing, and we're in the process of doing all the things we can to get the direction of this football team changed. I think there needs to be a measured approach, and I know there needs to be a measured approach. You don't have complete urban renewal, change offenses and defenses, and drastic changes on your depth charts. We're in the middle of developing a young football team. It's probably anybody out there, I was more surprised by the performance than anybody, because I believe we can be a good football team this year, and I believe that still, but that performance is not reflective of that. I don't want to spend a great deal of time talking about last week's performance, but anytime you go through a game, you've got 4 face masks and holding penalties and close to 100 yards penalties, and then you generate 330 yards, well, you do the math, you're going to have a hard time winning when you have that many self-inflicted wounds. And then along with that, for us to be able to rush for 41 yards and then give up 270 something. Some of it, we want to credit the University of North Dakota, but many of those things were our mistakes. Some of those things I'm going to be able to address here, and I'll answer your questions, and I'll be very candid with my answers. But some of those things, if you ask them, I'm not going to give you an answer. It may not be what you want to hear, but I'm not going to address every single thing. But I will not have rose-colored glasses on. The glasses I wear today are clear, and that was a really poor performance. And it has been my experience in the past that typically you make your most improvement between your first and second game. Most of the time during my tenure as a head football coach, that's not really been the case, because our teams have performed well in opening games. And so I'm in hopes that this time next week we have a different direction as far as our performance. So I think it's an easy thing to say, hey, as a head football coach, I'm going to take all that loss. That's all on me. I think those are really misleading statements. That's the same thing that you come in and when we win a game that, you know what, I'm the guy that did it all. That this is a team effort, collective effort, and it was a subpar performance would not be accurate. It was a poor performance. And as coaching staff, we've got an experienced coaching staff. We have an extremely young football team. And while I don't want to say, okay, that's the excuse for it, but to not recognize that there's some youth out there, and for me as a head football coach, I overestimated our ability to handle situations with that youth. I did, and I'll own that one. I thought we would be further along with some of our players who are young, and then we've got players who are playing different positions as well. And while they have played in a college game, they're playing different positions. And so I'll own that one. But we've got to move forward. I have learned a long time ago that if you look in the rearview mirror a long time, you're going to have those same results. We're going to change our trajectory as far as some of the things we're asking our players to do, and clean up some of those self-inflicted wounds. So at this time, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have about last week's performance. And then along with that, I am going to note that I think we're playing an excellent Eastern Michigan football team. Bell, their quarterback, is a really outstanding athletic quarterback, 6'3", 190 pounds. He's got great elusiveness. He throws the ball well. They've got a running back, Jackson, who is, I think he's up for the Doak Walker award list. 6 foot, 220 pounds. He's run away from Old Dominion. And Old Dominion is in a part of the country maybe a lot of people don't know. They're in the Tidewater area. I mean, great athletes come out of that area. And so they lost a close game to a good football team. And so it'll be a great opportunity for us to play a very, very capable opponent. So now we'll open up to questions.
Craig, with the run game, do you simplify things a little bit? Did you see, was it more offensive line or backs not getting to the holes quick enough? What did you kind of see where the major struggles were and where you're hoping to correct?
Well, I think it's always important as a head football coach that I make some measured comments because it is, 11 guys that are out there. I thought the University of North Dakota had a good scheme, and some of the schemes we had seen before, some things that were new. But the number of opportunities for our backs to really get going was very limited. And so I think we got to take a look at the University of North Dakota. I feel like we have two really good running backs. I know we have two really good running backs, and we got to create some lanes for them to run in. And that was not the case. And so we're going to be in the process of correcting that this week. So you glean through those comments the best you can, Robert.
Coach, what did you see that you liked from the team in this past week's performance?
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because sometimes I say a couple things. First of all, and it may seem like a little thing, but I thought our punt game. I know we punted too much, but I thought our punt game was excellent. I thought that was good. We did show the ability to throw the ball deep. The touchdown play to Gentry. I think that was the second longest touchdown reception in Cowboy football history. I may be wrong on that. Tim had mentioned that to me. And so that shows that we've got the ability to throw the ball deep. And that is going to serve us as well as we move forward. I thought later on in the game when our young defensive backs and some other people came around, we started playing faster. And so those are some positive things. Some of our run fits got a little bit better as the game went along. And so we'll build on those things. But outside of that was about it. So when you're starting to talk about your punt team and one long pass, maybe a couple fits, that proves to be a pretty short-changed day. But I did note that with our football team today. I brought those very same points up.
Coach, you talked about the penalties last week. Will discipline be a focus this week?
It's going to be a huge point of emphasis, and I, when we say collectively, I take ownership of that. During the fall, the number of times that we had officials in our practices was very limited, and that's going to be a point of emphasis next year. That many times those things as coaches we're out there looking at the schemes, but where those guys hand placements, that we look at some things on film, but we're going to get more officials around our players. The number of holds and the number of face masks, and some of it comes into the amount of full contact work that we had. That's sometimes when the hands come up high. And what was frustrating was we limited the amount of full contact we had this fall, and we had a live play scrimmage of 35 plays, and we had 2 ACL tears in 35 plays. So if you do the math, that's pretty scary. But I think that contributed to some of it. And but those things have got to get cleaned up, and it'd be dangerous for me to make a broad-based promise. By God, those things are going to get cleaned up, but it's going to be a huge point of emphasis that we limit that. Last year, I think in our opening game, I think during the first 2 games, we were the least penalized opponent least penalized team in America. And we went from being one of the least penalized teams to one of the most penalized teams, and that's got to change in a quick, short order. Those are things that we can control.
Coach, you addressed Eastern Michigan with an athletic quarterback, very good running back. You just kind of saw something similar. So what's your concern level defensively? What type of things, you mentioned not tweaks, adjustments, do you then see this week?
Without getting into all real technical specifics, I think it's important to see how we deploy our guys. Certainly the 11th hat is a challenging hat to deal with, and that's getting somewhat technical. So we'll have to change some things. I think some things at the lines of scrimmage. We've got some pretty good defensive linemen that are going to make sure that they're canceling out some gaps that we didn't do a great job with last week. But as mobile as what UND's quarterback was, Studsrud, this guy is significantly more mobile. So turn up the level of intensity there.
How much different, similar is this Eastern Michigan team defensively than what you saw in week one? Is it completely different, or do you see some similarities?
There's some differences. They operate out of a 3-down look. Technically, there's more technique that's played. UND did a lot of stunning and moving, and all those things look good. Typically, I say when teams are doing that, somebody's band's going to be playing. You better hope it's yours. And I thought UND had the hot hand. You'll see Eastern Michigan, at least in the past, has been more technical. Their guys are in station places. The coverages guys, their feet are underneath them a little bit more. So that's some form, but that doesn't mean that's going to be how they're going to play us this week. But that's a little bit different than what we saw, but they still operate out of a 3-down look.
Craig, I saw on the depth chart that Pillapill's back at starter. So is it competition with him and during the week, or is he back in there? Will he get the starter reps in practice?
Well, we're going to look at how things go during the course of the week, but we released a depth chart that indicated that. There'll be a final depth chart before we go. That if there's some changes made, that Tim will get to you. But that's where Adam's at.
How's Cam? This I know it was a minor thing you said.
It was minor. We'll see. I doubt that he practices today, but we'll see how that goes. That'll be a day by day decision to see how he comes. He's got a minor strain in his knee, and all that comes down to just how fast he heals up from that. Certainly, he's going to need to get some looks and stuff like that. But we'll see that, monitor that as we go.
We saw some flashes from Cam in the second half of the game last week. Do you think him and Gentry are finding a little bit of chemistry and rhythm?
Yeah, I do. Some of it is we have very few experienced receivers. Tanner and Jake are the two guys. Outside of that, all those other guys are freshmen, and they played. So certainly guys that have played. There's a comfort level there. Those guys had a good rhythm during fall camp, and we'll need to utilize that as we go. But what we cannot do is just say, "Hey, this is our show. It's it's Cam to Tanner." That's it. Other coaches out there, they scout, they see things, and those things are much more easily defended when that's all you do. And so I think to have that threat there, though. I mean, Tanner pulled away. He ran through through those two coverage guys and pulled away from them. And that's, like I said, that's going to serve us as well. If you're calling defenses, I was a defensive coach for a long, long time. When you know that you've got a deep threat like that, you better back that coverage up.
Coach, obviously not at a good point right now after the first game. So how much do you believe in the fight of these guys? And I guess what do you need to see out of them in practice here, especially early in the week, to kind of bounce back?
First thing we need to do is pay better attention to detail during practice and understand that that we are not a veteran football team, so there's teachable moments here. And the character of this football team, the guys, there's a want to, and there's a belief, and there's an experienced coaching staff to bring that along. And so you're always mindful, okay, is the team ever going to quit on you? That's not there, and now our play wasn't where it needed to be, but these guys, they want to be good, and it's our job to show them how to be good. And since there's a pretty steep learning curve on some of these guys right now, if you look, particularly one of the more complicated positions on a football field is in the secondary. When you look, you got all freshmen and a sophomore there, and a lot of them have never played, and so you're going to have some growing pains that come about that. But as far as the want to, no, I feel really good about that.
Coach, you mentioned that obviously you want to close some of the gaps as far as the defensive line goes, but anything else you're looking to see from the D-line going forward?
From the defensive line? Well, I think that this week they're going to get tested. This mobile quarterback, can break you down, and so it's going to be important for us as they're encountering plays in the open field, that they've got their feet underneath them in a balanced stance. I think it's going to be really important that we get penetration in the pocket, so the quarterback is under duress, for us to say, okay, Eastern Michigan's got really good skill at the wide spot, that we're going to put all that stuff on our young secondary. I don't think that'd be wise. We're going to need to leverage the fact you've got, Eddie Yarborough, O.C., Uso, and Chase, and they're good seasoned veteran players. Now, you got some guys behind them that have not played. Carl Granderson played a lot of meaningful reps, and we were pleased with him. He's a true freshman. I think we had Connor Kane was in there. He's a redshirt freshman. So there's some younger guys, but those older guys are going to need to show up.
Coach, Eastern Michigan's coming off a game where they gained 444 yards of total offense and a shootout loss. How important will it be to control the tempo come Saturday against the Eagles?
Well, another factor that came into play was our third downs. I think we're 3 of 13 or something along that line, and a lot of that starts with more productivity on first down. That doesn't mean you run all the time, but we've got to be balanced and get some gains on first down to where you're coming up with third down and much more makeable. And so we've got to be a much more efficient offense. That's probably one of the poorer performances that we've had since I've been head coach offensively. And so our efficiency is staying on the field. And then on the other side, we've got to get off the field on third down. And there were many times that it was not third down and short. It was third down and long that they were able to convert it. So those are the things that are, between penalties and that third down ratio, those are the things that ebb and flow that change the complexion of the game. Those are stats. What's got to happen is just show up on the grass, on the turf this Saturday.